What is going on, everybody? Scott Newby here from Friday Night AV. Thank you so much for joining me for another mini episode. On this mini episode, which I've been trying to throw into the mix between the lives, the full length videos, the shorts, and everything that we got going on with the channel, still only 5 months in, figuring a lot of things out, getting a lot of questions about a lot of stuff. People certainly quite often are asking for more content, certainly trying to appease the masses. So throwing in these little mini episodes here. This is could be a controversial topic for some. Certainly going to take a very laid back approach to it. Anybody that's already in the hobby or anybody that's thinking of getting into the hobby probably certainly can relate to this episode. And this episode is titled Home Theater Cost. Now that we can approach this from a lot of different angles, pretty much what I want to go over the next 15 or 20 minutes or so. How much it costs to get into the hobby, why some people are kind of reluctant to share how much they've got into the hobby. And a lot of that just boils down to is with any hobby that you have a lot of passion in, people, people that have a lot of money tied up in the stuff don't like to bloat, and be like, oh, I got $200,000 into this or 50,000 or even 10,000 or whatever it is. Because people are doing it, they want to just enjoy the hobby. And the real pleasure you get from that is not talking about how much you spend, but by how much you enjoy it or the experiences that you're giving to yourself, your family, your friends, other people interested in the hobby. I get the question a lot, how much do you have tied up in your home theater, into your two-channel? I really don't like to get into it just because I think it kind of construes the hobby a little bit. Because you don't need to go the route that I went to enjoy yourself, or the route the next guy did, or the route the guy before that. Sorry, I hit the microphone. But I do want to say, obviously, it does cost some money, but you can get into this hobby not for pennies, but certainly start off very cheap and work your way up to whatever desired, satisfaction that you want to get to. A lot of guys, even close friends of mine, hey, I subscribe to your YouTube channel just to show you some support, but I don't watch any of your stuff because, to be honest, I it's out of my price range. It's out of my league. I don't understand any of it. When I come over to your house, I'm blown away. I have no idea how to recreate that in my own home, let alone be able to afford to do that. So what I've been trying to do is go out of my way, of course, as time permits, to help those guys and be like, look, you don't have to build a setup like I have, or somebody that has something better or nicer than me. Like, you can literally enjoy 75, 85% of what you just enjoyed at my house in your own home for not a whole bunch of money. I think what a lot of people get confused is, oh, I got to drop all this money or I'm not going to get an experience. You're certainly going to get experience, especially if you're coming from just a TV or just a sound bar. You can certainly heighten your experience to crazy levels for not a lot of money. And that's what I want this video to be focused around. That, of course, any hobby, anything in life, especially nowadays, costs some money. But let's get that entry level in and just kick back and enjoy yourself. I mean, we're living in a day and age where you can pick up, 70, 75, 80, 85 inch TVs for like 500, 800 bucks. Right away we can start with some immersion, getting the feeling of, oh, I'm kind of at the movie theater. We're also in the time age where you can get amazing 1080p projectors for like $1,000 and 120 inch, 140 inch screens for a couple $100. If you have the space in a light controlled room, projectors are absolutely amazing. I couldn't think personally in my personal theater of going a different route. But if you get in a room that you cannot control the light, or you're just in a family room, or you're just anywhere where a projector doesn't make sense, you can certainly pick up a nice big screen TV for not a lot of money. And then you can move into getting yourself a receiver, a couple of speakers. I mean, how far do you want this to go is completely up to you. But what you're going to notice that by moving to a larger screen, not only is it going to give you a more cinematic feel, like depending on your seating distance, but for most people, moving from a 55-inch TV to an 85-inch TV is going to be a huge, huge wow factor just in itself. But what you really want to do to start enjoying the hobby is getting that center channel dialogue to be crystal clear, which means, that's the speaker that sits very center and as close to the middle of the screen as possible. In a lot of home theaters, that goes right behind the screen through an acoustic transparent screen. Or if you don't have that, it's close to the bottom or close to the top and tilted down towards the seats. Same thing with a big screen TV, as close as you can get to center. That's where you want to start, because the biggest things that I've noticed that people say when they come over and experience one of our rooms is, I can hear every little thing that person is saying, even if they're whispering, and I can hear or I can feel the bass. So I've noticed, of course, Atmos is cool and surround is cool, and that can all be built on earlier. But I think where you would want to start, and where you could start to enjoy the hobby and get some rewards right away from, getting into the hobby, is that you want to get started with some kind of receiver, new or used. Just, I would want to say you want to keep it in, with the Dolby Atmos family. Don't go back any more technology than that. Because even if you're not planning on doing Atmos now, it's certainly going to be nice to have that option in the future. You got to realize that a lot of people are selling receivers that are only 6 months old, a year old, 2 years old, amazing receivers that they possibly spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for on, the used marketplace for $800, $900, $500, only because certain people approach the hobby of, I just want the latest and greatest, new stuff came out, different technology came out. And what's very important to them certainly won't be as nearly important to you with just joining the hobby. So as long as you can make sure you're going to be Dolby Atmos capable, I think that is a very good place to start. Certainly matching your front three speakers, your left, center, and your right, with whatever speaker you decide to go with, is certainly important. You want a nice seamless around, through the front. The surrounds, if there's cheaper options, you can certainly start with that. If you're going to do surrounds and Atmos, just do a cheaper option if you can't do all the speakers the same, or the route that you want to go. Once again, you can pick up a lot of the stuff used or from reputable places that sell B stock. If you're not in these Facebook groups or AVS forum groups, there's so much good information and other good YouTube channels out there. If you're completely a newbie, which is funny because I'm Scott Newby with Friday Night AV, but if you're a complete newbie to the whole scenario, just be like, I've experienced some home theaters, I think they're amazing, I don't even know where to start, then there's certainly some amazing resources such as like Home Theater Gurus. Stephen Smith that runs that channel is absolutely amazing. He will baby step walk you with cool visuals and a lot of editing and a lot of very simplistic terms to some more of the complicated stuff. So you can just kind of understand, like, oh, I have this space, I should probably go maybe with this size TV. I can put speakers here. I can put speakers here. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, for the people that don't know, it absolutely does not matter how much money that you spend on equipment. If it is not set up correctly, like speakers being in correct placements or very close, unfortunately everybody has their space to work with unless you're doing a whole complete build from scratch. But the closer you get the speakers within their tolerance, and putting your seat in the right spot and the screen size being correct, and you start creating these, experiences in your home, a mediocre or even a low budget system that is set up 100% correctly is going to blow away a very high-end setup. It is amazing that you see some high-end setups that do not perform very well, or people are not very satisfied with, or they're not even hooked up or programmed. Sound is off, picture is off. So setup is certainly key. A lot of me and my friends that are close in this hobby, we've talked about this a lot. We've gone to a lot of home theaters together. We've experienced home theaters, where guys have a center channel that's literally 3 or 4 feet away from the center of the screen, or off to one side, or surround speakers that weren't wired correctly, or Atmos speakers that were nowhere near where they were supposed to be. And as you help tighten up that circle, you're not spending any money. You're already just taking the equipment that you have and putting it in the correct position in the correct place. And then everything starts to fall together. And then that turns a very so-so experience into an, oh my God, that's an amazing experience. So getting stuff off the used market, if you get on like the Youth Man group or the Youth Man deals or home theater deals, and you just become part of these groups like Home Theater for Everyone, Home Theaters, Youth Man, Home Theater Gurus, all these groups are filled with guys that have a very severe case of, well, some of us obsession, but just incredible passion for the hobby. Everybody wants to help each other. Very rarely going to find some, unfortunately, with any group and any hobby, you're going to have the 1%, that's just, out to seek destruction. But seriously, people will point you in the right directions. Like, hey, this company's having a deal. This company's got cool B stock. I've personally just given stuff away, stuff I haven't used. I've seen guys do the same too. Guys just getting into the hobby. Hey, I'm just getting started. Don't have a lot of money. Anybody know where I can pick up a cheap 4K player or this or that? And I've seen so many people just be like, hey, man, I got a couple 4K players. If you want to cover the shipping, I'll just ship it out to you. I just recently, within the last year, shipped a mini DSP 2x4 out to somebody because I bought it years ago, not knowing any better, that it was just a standard version. I needed HD version. And I was like, it's just sitting around here. This guy really needs it. I was like, don't even worry about it. Just ship it to you. I'm not saying that to get on the groups to just look for free stuff. I'm just saying there's a lot of people want to help. I get questions a lot. Hey, how much money should I spend on this? Should I spend on that? I don't have thousands. Certainly don't spend all your money in cables. At a certain point, cables certainly obviously make sense. You want good quality constructed cables such as Monoprice, Blue Jean cables, stuff like that, of course. But your cables shouldn't break the bank. If you're building a low, budget system, you shouldn't be spending thousands of dollars on cables. I got quite a bit of money tied up in both my systems. I certainly have tried very expensive cables, and I see absolutely no difference. There's been plenty of blind tests too. Certain cables certainly do make sense for certain situations, and some cables certainly look a lot better. On my 2-channel setup upstairs, it would be more of what people would refer to if I was to get expensive cables, like just jewelry, to make the speakers look, nicer or, more exotic when you're looking at the connectors and stuff like that. But if you are just getting started in this hobby and you have a budget like most of us do, is you certainly don't want to just, blow a whole bunch of your budget on wires. Certainly keep it to just a couple % of that budget. And then also with subwoofers, I get this question a lot. My feeling is if you can work on getting your dialogue nice and crispy, getting a matching front set of 3 speakers, having that seamless pan across front, and starting with some good bass, especially for, a budget starting. I'm a big fan of the new Klipsch line, the new RP. So far, they've seemed to be really good performers. I've had some personal experience with them. I think you get a lot of bass for a decent amount of money. Also, I've always been a huge fan of SHU, Dr. Hugh, or Shu. Sorry if I mispronounced his name. I actually met him at an audio show. Super cool guy, very knowledgeable. He offers some nice subwoofers that give some nice, clean bass for not a lot of money. A lot of these places you can check too. If I buy multiples, you save money. Also, places offer B stock. Like Power Sound Audio, they even do trade-in programs. So if you were to buy a sub and be like, well, in a year or two, I want to get a better sub, you would get some credit towards that. Even, buying with SVS, you can upgrade to a different sub later. There's some costs obviously involved with that as well too. There's nothing wrong with buying a used sub, of course, but you got to realize that the subwoofer amplifiers are very prone for failure in a lot of subwoofers because they produce the hardest frequencies for any of the speakers. It takes a lot of power, a lot of heat to create those frequencies. And most of the cases are built inside of boxes that sit there and shake and rumble all day. So they're very prone for failure. So buying a subwoofer, in my opinion, that is, 5, 6, 10 years old, I certainly wouldn't invest a lot of money into it because I don't know how long that amplifier is going to last you. Not saying you can't buy a brand new sub and it shows up dead on arrival. I've absolutely had that happen over the years as well too. Another mistake that I have made from a financial point of view in the theater was when I was first building the theater in this house, trying to keep it low budget, is I bought used seats, and it was the bonded leather, which in general is not very great, especially once it starts peeling. When I bought them, they were in pretty nice shape, and I used them for about a year and a half, and then they all started peeling, even though my theater rarely ever gets used. And then pretty much when I was getting rid of them, they were, you can't sell them. I was lucky to give them away. They still had some life left in them, and somebody, used them. But seating, especially in my room, is a pain in the butt to get it down the stairs. My theater don't get used very often. Not much use. The seats kind of fell apart. Gave them away, which means we had to carry them back out of the theater. And then I bought nicer seats I've had for about 3 years now, holding up pretty good. Still not exactly what I wanted at the time, but they were on sale. The price is right. The form was right. And I do enjoy them. But certainly some stuff I think is cool to buy used, other stuff not, especially with seats. Bonded leather sucks, as everybody knows. I mean, once it goes, it's worthless. And then also, if you got to put a lot of effort into it. So some stuff you buy is not going to have any resale value in it. It's actually could even be a pain to just give away. There's nothing wrong though with buying used amplifiers as long as they're well taken care of. Same thing with receivers. When people post pictures or you go to audition them, you can get a pretty good feel about how people take care of their stuff by talking to them, seeing the way that other stuff is around. For the receivers in it, you see that are kind of dented up and they look like they've never been wiped down or clean, regardless of the cost. I mean, I would probably stay away from it. That means probably the inside is completely packed full of dust. And what that really means is, stuff is not ventilating well, keeping cool. And at the end of the day, heat is the death of all electronics. So certainly keep an eye out for that. I've actually did the barter system, a Sunfire amplifier that I used in my setup for Atmos for years. I mean, that was a barter job. There's certainly ways to get your hands on stuff for not a lot of money. Same thing with screens. You can YouTube that. You can spandex the screen. You can build your own screen on the wall like I did. Black border, paint it with a nice paint. The paint I used was recommended by JVC rep that I met at an audio and video show. And, my screen, I got maybe like $100 tied up into it. So people might be like, oh, money's no object. Money's certainly an object for everybody in this hobby. It's just you can get some nice used stuff for not a lot of money. You can upgrade slowly as you go, and you got to remember that as you progress through this hobby, there's always going to be somebody else starting. So the stuff that you buy, as long as you take good care of it, will always still hold some value. Something that I don't know, let's just say somebody bought something for $200, sold it to you for $100. You use it for a year and then you sell it for $60. I mean, that's not a bad deal for everybody involved. So just thinking, hey, I got to get into this hobby. I got to drop $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 right away. I mean, that's just not the case. And if you're DIY or you're very capable of DIY, there's so many subwoofer enclosures that you can build yourself, or even simple speaker designs, or building your own acoustic panels, or there's just so much stuff that you can do yourself. A lot of stuff I didn't do myself. I built the actual room and I do my own calibration and stuff like that. But it was easier for me to just order acoustic panels, and you show up at home and they're there. You hang them up. The amount of time you have available that you can dedicate to the hobby, of course, comes into play with your job and family. We all have this balancing act. Hopefully my hands, I don't know, I could be like a puppet master or something. But so I know a lot of guys. So basically, I just wanted to hop on here for 20 minutes saying, guys, if you want to get into this hobby, whether it's at any kind of level, do it. It can be done. It doesn't cost $1 million. I promise you it doesn't. If you are not in any of these groups that I mentioned earlier, get on those groups. Even if you don't have a setup, you can join the groups and you can see where the deals are at, see what people are talking about. There's a lot of real world experiences. Go visit. I visited home theaters that literally cost 10 times as much as my home theater, and I visited theaters that cost 10 times less of my home theater. And there's so much out there that you can do regardless of your budget. There honestly is. You can create a movie night for you and your family, or for you and your friends, or something that you're proud to show off, or something that you're just proud to enjoy by yourself, and just sit back and only have a few bucks tied up into something, and it puts the biggest smile on your face. Because I'm going to tell you this is the terrible secret behind all of home theater stuff, is once you get to a certain point of happiness and money spent, you're going to start spending a lot of money for very, very minimal increases. So a lot has to be said for budget systems. Everybody I've known pretty much just started a budget system. I don't think a lot of people believe it, but it is that a lot of people don't just have a blank, checkbook and like, all right, come in and, set up my system. I want all the best gear. Here's $500,000. I've known, literally, I've been in this hobby my whole life. I know maybe 2 people that have done that. 2 people personally, and I've met thousands of people in this hobby. So enjoy the journey. It's all a journey. Enjoy the people in the journey. If, streaming services are getting better nowadays too. I still prefer physical media myself, or if you're fortunate enough to have a Kaleidoscape or something like that, where you can do bit for bit, as just as good as disc or even better, or ripping disc. But even if you can only do streaming, you don't have to worry about storing the disc, spend all that money on disc, buying players for the disc. You get a good streamer, and you can get really, really good pictures. And on some audio mixes, they're not terrible now. Some of the stuff I've watched has, good bass or good surround effects. If you're building a budget system, there's absolutely nothing wrong with staying with just doing streaming. It is certainly a viable option of bringing a lot of entertainment enjoyment to your space. So if you want to check out more of these episodes, or you have some input for me or some questions for me, we can always be reached. Living It with Scott and Cat podcast. We share a lot of videos, a lot of stuff. We have a Facebook group, Living It with Scott and Cat podcast. Email livingitwithscottandcatpodcast at Gmail. We try to get back to everybody. We literally do. Just got a lot of avenues going on right now, a lot of things going on. Certainly appreciate you guys taking 20 minutes out of your day to check this video. I am working on 2 other videos. Hopefully I can drop here in the next week. Like always, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thank you so much for the amazing community that loves and supports us. We wouldn't be here without you guys. So I certainly want to say, enjoy your day, enjoy the hobby, crank it up, and regardless of where you're at in this hobby, enjoy yourself. See you guys later.